you would be doing the job of
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Alright, so how many of you guys would like to have healthy lifestyles? Basically all you guys. How many of you guys want to help the environment? Basically everybody. So there's a certain lifestyle that can help with both of these topics, which is vegetarianism. Most people think that being a vegetarian, there's a lack of proteins and such, that it doesn't really benefit you, it's just you're eating vegetables and plants. And that it doesn't really help out society or anything. But vegetarianism is generally defined as a diet that is plant-based and excludes meats. And there's also many types of them, such that only animal-derived ingredients such as dairy products, eggs, and gelatin. So basically, my topic is that vegetarianism has a positive effect on the environment and socially. Yeah. All right. So according to the American Dietetic Association, they say that vegetarians have been shown to be more helpful and beneficial to the treatment of many diseases. So basically, being a vegetarian is helpful to your human health, which there are three types of diseases or something that can be helped through vegetarianism, which is obesity, cardiovascular disease, and types of cancer. So basically there's one of the big problems in our country is obesity, obviously, and being a vegetarian can help that, such that the Adventist Health Study, which is through Loma Linda University, states that being a vegetarian you have a lower body mass index compared to people who are non-vegetarians, and that being a vegetarian helps lower the risk of metabolic syndrome, which is a disease that gives you stroke and type 2 diabetes. So the next topic is cardiovascular disease, and there's a study conducted through Oxford, Loma Linda, and many departments around the world that they analyzed 5 cases that involved more than 76,000 people, showing that some heart diseases were significantly lower in men and women who were vegetarians. Cancer as well can be helped through vegetarianism, and through, again, the Adventist Health Study, it shows that cancer of the colon and prostate are significantly more likely in non-vegetarians, and frequent beef eaters have higher risk of bladder cancer. Also, vegetarians usually have more intake of fruit and vegetables, have a lower risk of lung, prostate, and pancreatic cancer. So my next topic is through the environment, how vegetarianism can help through the environment. So the United Nations in 2006 stated that livestock sector emerges as one of the top 2 or 3 significant contributors to the most serious environmental problems at every scale, local and global. So one of the reasons vegetarian can help the environment is that through the production of animal products, land degradation is what they do. They basically deteriorate the land and rid of it of its topsoil vegetation and basically destroy the resources, which you won't be able to grow any more plants there or have any of the ecosystem that used to be there, in order to graze for the livestock. So my next topic is that more plant is pollution. Pollution is one of the main priorities or topics in helping the environment. And basically the percentage of transportation around the world is 13.2% of CO2 is the amount of emissions that transportation produces, but animal agriculture produces 18% of the CO2 emissions around the world. So basically more plant-based diets would help substantially in mitigating greenhouse gases. So my last topic is food and water supplies. So in order to produce livestock and animals, you have to feed them grain and water. But in order to do that, you have to water the grain and then give water to the plants and to the animals and grain. So basically, the grain that you can feed the livestock could feed up to 800 million people in the world, which is a lot. and basically, animal agriculture is the leading consumer of water consumption in the U.S. And in the United States, we, especially here in the western states, we're experiencing water shortages, and because of our growing population, we do need to help, to lower our water and food, supplies. So that is why we should be vegetarians, and it would help the environment and human society.
All right, well, I think the attention device with the questions is kind of silly, since it's doubtful anybody's going to say, no, I want to live a crappy life and to hell with the planet. So I think instead you want to find a more interesting way to get started. You do have a pretty clear identification of your proposition. However, it does have multiple parts to it. So instead of functioning as a single proposition, it has severable claims, and we don't want that. You did okay suggesting what the secondary issues were going to be. You labeled them pretty clearly. The internal labeling on the first point got a little complicated because there are multiple health claims that you're making on those points, but they were relatively easy to follow. I think that the proof on each of those is very generic. You've got kind of a conclusionary piece of testimony on each of them without providing any statistical comparison, for instance, on the level of risk on cardiovascular disease or obesity or any of the other things that you're talking about there. So that's not to say that there isn't a health impact, and you've provided some evidence to suggest there's a health impact. I'm just not sure how significant it is based on the argument that you presented. The transition to the second issue is relatively clear, although the environmental issues excuse me, seem to be kind of marching all over the place. On the land degradation argument, I think there's some big assumptions in this one, and to some degree it seems counterintuitive, given that the whole process by which animals the circle of life sort of thing, goes on, suggests that the nutrients in the soil are going to be restored as a consequence of the animals being there in the first place. So you need some examples there. You need some authority that says that this is true, that there are large patches of the earth that are no longer habitable or useful because we've been grazing cattle or feeding pigs or letting chickens run wild in those particular spots. You need something like that, because otherwise it's just an assumption, and it doesn't seem to be logically sound just on its face. I'm not saying that there isn't some proof on it, but I didn't get the proof in this argument. The one place where you had some quantification of the environmental risk was on the CO2 gases, and you had a statistic there that suggested what contribution animal production makes to the CO2 in the atmosphere. Again, I think there's one of those things where everybody has presupposed the impact of CO2, so you're kind of taking that as a given. I think we've heard 3 or 4 speeches tonight that have done that. It would be interesting to me to have somebody respond to all these arguments by maybe even challenging the impact of anthropogenic global warming and the assumptions that it makes. I think that would be a twist on this argument, because there are so many presuppositions built into these arguments. At the very end, you end up with a policy claim. You don't finish up by saying, once again, here are the advantages, and that's why it's sound to be a vegetarian, or these are the benefits of it. Instead, it's you should be a vegetarian. So once you introduce a claim like that, you're subject to a whole variety of rebuttal arguments that wouldn't have been appropriate before. So don't be surprised if you get a few of those. All right.